You're listening to the Everyday is a New Day show. Inspirational conversations with movers and shakers about moving forward and choosing to embrace a positive outlook. Now, here's your host, Kim O'Neill.
Welcome. My name's Kim O'Neill, and I'm a twice certified transformational coach, Reiki master, best-selling author, podcast host, former crime analyst, and big believer in learning from everything so you can confidently move forward in life. You can join us for the live shows most Wednesdays on Facebook at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And now, here's today's newest awesome guest. With that said, I'm really excited to bring to you today's guest. I've been getting a lot of positive feedback about her. Let's go ahead and welcome to the show, Tracy Farquhar. Welcome, Tracy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and just give everyone a little bit about your background, those who don't already know who you are. And then we're going to get into our conversation, which I know is just going to be so fun. So let us know if you're with us live. Let us know in the comments if you have questions and things like that as we go, because we're going to connect with you as well. So Tracy Farquhar is an internationally known professional psychic medium, best-selling author, teacher, speaker, and channel. Through her ability to deeply connect with your energy and the energy of your guides, your loved ones in spirit, and other high vibrational beings, she offers valuable guidance and spiritual wisdom in her individual and group readings, workshops, classes, and channeled sessions. She is the author of 2 best-selling books. She's the author of Channeled Messages from Deep Space, Wisdom for a Changing World, which was actually co-authored with the New York Times bestselling author Mike Dooley. And it was also published by Hay House. And she's also the author of Frank Talk, a book of channeled wisdom. And Frank is the name of a collective consciousness that she channels. And so there's so much more I can tell you, but let's talk to Tracy directly.
Awesome.
Oh my goodness. So Tracy, my very first question that I always just think it's just so fascinating connecting with someone who does this work so consistently and to the point that they have, they're that clear channel and you receive those messages and so beautifully deliver them. I've had a couple of readings with you and I was like, whoa, wow, she got me. So I want to just first ask you, how did your intuitive abilities, your psychic abilities, all that, how did that come about for you?
Well, I can't say that I always knew I was psychic. I'm not one of those people who says I had childhood experiences with that. Although I did grow up in a family that was very open to everything paranormal, metaphysical. So it was something that, I was aware of. I was always fascinated by, just from my family. And I was also extremely introverted my whole life. Was thought of as being very shy and quiet, didn't like crowds. And was often told that I was too sensitive. And so that part of my personality felt like a fault most of my life,
Wow.
So it wasn't until about 15 years ago, I started to take a psychic development class at a local community college just for fun with a friend. Again, because I was just fascinated by this stuff. Never had any sense that I had any abilities, although I had had a few experiences, nothing extraordinary that I thought of. So in those classes, we did a lot of practice readings on people, and I found that I was pretty good at it. But even more important than that was that I really developed a passion for it. And I found that it was really explaining a lot to me about my whole life, being so sensitive. Wasn't just being shy. It was an element of my awareness of vibrational energy, of just energy in general, and that I could use it to my benefit. And it wasn't really a fault, that it was something I could work with. So I took that class at that college over and over again. And started practicing doing readings. I was a secretary at the time at an arts college. So I had a lot of art students who liked getting free readings. And so that's how I practiced. And then I started offering readings as a part-time gig in addition to my full-time job. And then the universe kind of gave me a little nudge and things started to shift and my full-time job became part-time. My business started to grow, and it's been about 7 years now that I've been doing it full-time.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm amazed that and inspired to know that you came into it, later on in life.
Mhm.
I think that's really inspiring for people who just can relate to your story and your background. So I just want to like reiterate. So did you not have any like psychic experiences or interesting dreams or anything like that as you were growing up before taking those classes?
Well, I did, but I
Okay.
didn't really think of them as being anything extraordinary,
Okay.
and again, just as a family, we had a lot of experiences. We had a house where we had a lot of paranormal activity going on. So it wasn't anything that was really new to me, but I didn't really personalize it as something that I could use in any way.
Okay.
So, but once I started to recognize that and really started to um, practice it and work out, it's just like any other muscle. You go to the gym, you work it out, um, and started to recognize the signals and signs that I was getting. Yeah, I started to realize that I've always been getting that stuff. I just wasn't really identifying it as anything other than just my own thoughts.
Right.
So because I kind of developed that way, I realized that everybody has these abilities. It's not limited to a certain number of people. Some people come in with a higher degree of sensitivity, but I think it's inherent to all of us. We just normally block it because our culture doesn't accept it. So now I teach psychic development, and in fact, I'm teaching the class at the college that I started out with.
Oh, wow.
Mhm. So I think because it changed my life so much, and not just in what I do for a living, but just in the way that I operate my life. I'm very enthusiastically helping other people to discover it within themselves as well. Um, mm,
One of the first things when I first heard of you or found out about you, however I want to phrase that, is you were teaching a component of Mike Dooley's Infinite Possibilities
mhm,
Train the Trainer course.
mhm,
And I was super energized when I watched yours. And I was like, oh my gosh, Tracy Farquhar. So on the one hand, it's really interesting that it's taken me so long to connect with you and ask you to come on the Every Day is a New Day show, because I've truly been excited since then
mhm,
to connect with you on a deeper level. But one of the things that I recall coming up in that video, and that I know you talk about today, and I imagine with your students, is vibrational awareness.
mhm, mhm.
Will you talk about how that plays a role in receiving messages and tuning into your intuition and all that kind of stuff?
Sure. Well, everything's energy, and so that's the foundation of it. Everything is energy. Everything in the material world and in the non-material world is composed of energetic components. Most of the things that we can perceive with our five senses are simply the vibration of that energy is at a low enough frequency that our senses are able to pick it up. But we know that there's a lot more to existence than that. So, for instance, the spectrum of light is very long, but we can only perceive a small part of that with our eyes. We know that the others exist, X rays and ultraviolet light and so forth. But the frequency of it is beyond our capability of picking up with our eyes. And so the same thing is with other forms of energy. So thought energy, emotional energy, just the energy that exudes from our physical being, from our spirit, um, the energy of the past, present, and the future, the energy of deceased people, the spirit world, and other beings in other dimensional spaces. Um, just because we can't normally perceive that with our five senses doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And we have the capability of tuning into that energy. Everyone does. And in fact, even people who don't believe in this stuff will practice it without even realizing it. For instance, if you're looking for a new place to live, you're looking for a house. This is a time where pretty much everybody will unconsciously tune into energy. They'll walk into the place and they're not just looking at how many bedrooms and what the wallpaper's like. They're feeling the energy of it, and people will use language like, it just doesn't feel right in here, or this place feels really good. And if you were to ask them what they mean by that, they probably would have a hard time describing that. We don't have the language for it, right?
Yep.
Or if you walk into a hospital it's not just the smells and the sick people, it's the energy there. It doesn't feel good. There's so much emotional energy. It can be very overwhelming.
Right.
Or a prison or any other place where there's a lot of, high emotional energy. We use language like you could cut the air with a knife, or the air feels really heavy in here. Well, it's not really a physical sensation as much as it's just a sensation of energy. So we can all do that. And again, it's a frequency. It's an energetic frequency. Frequency is caused by vibration. So all the little particles of energy that make up everything that exists are vibrating and moving all the time. And it's just a matter of, is the desk that I'm leaning on right now is vibrating at a lower frequency than the spirit energy who might be hanging around here right now, So the idea is, if I can perceive this desk, I can perceive that higher energy as well, just in a different way. And so that's the way I teach it. And the way that I teach this course called Raising Your Vibrational Awareness is really based on my journey. Because as I mentioned, I was always very sensitive, very introverted, very overwhelmed by crowds and a lot of noise and energy. And what I came to understand in doing this work was that I'm an empath. So that was an aspect of being very sensitive to emotional energy. And emotional energy is really high-powered energy. It's really strong energy. So it doesn't take a whole lot to sense that. Like I was saying, anybody can feel that. But then, of course, there are people who are on the higher end of the spectrum who pick it up very easily and can become overwhelmed by it like I am. And so to me, that's the bottom of the scale, because it doesn't take a lot of raising your own vibration to connect with that. From there, it's intuition, which is knowing something without knowing how you know it. It's just kind of picking up information from the field. And it's usually pretty random. It's usually when we're in a relaxed state, or we're not really, we're kind of not really focused and distracted. We're open to receive. We get those shower hits, you get those little ideas in the car, or when you're meditating. Usually feels pretty random, but it's, you're kind of slipping into a little bit of an altered state of consciousness, which is like tuning the radio dial to a different station, and you're picking up on other information. From there, it's psychic abilities, which is a more deliberate and intentional use of intuition, where you're deliberately connecting with the energy of another person. So it's you're raising your vibration to another level with a strong intention to connect with somebody else, hopefully with the intention to help them and guide them, like it does, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Unfortunately, it doesn't always happen that way, but there are a lot of very talented people out there. So then from there, it's mediumship, which is connecting with spirit realm, which again is another level of vibration and frequency. Most of us don't see that very often and perceive it with our senses, although we can get sensations from spirit sometimes. So that requires a little bit of a higher vibrational connection to connect with spirit. And then the highest realm that I've experienced, and I'm sure there's more than that, is channeling, which is really just a more intense form of mediumship. So that's just where someone in the unseen world, whether it's a person or another kind of being, communicates directly through the channel. So that one is the highest form of energy that I can maintain, and it takes the most energy for me to make that connection.
Thank you so much for sharing that. For everyone listening, I just want to point out that Tracy just gave us like a little mini masterclass on the different ranges of energy.
Yeah.
And I find it fascinating to be able to see it in that way. I definitely want to talk about channeling and what that experience is like for you. But before we get into that, I want to ask you about just getting a little bit back to your personal experience about knowing that you are an introvert and an empath, and now you want to, I guess, make sense of the messages and information that you're receiving, and put yourself out there publicly.
Mhm.
What was that experience like for you? Did you have any resistance to that, or what was that like for you?
Yeah, it was pretty terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one thing to practice this in a little enclosed classroom, and it's another thing to put yourself out there. And, every step of the way, I had to put myself out there a little bit more. So every step of the way was a little bit of a bigger challenge. Fortunately, I got, a lot of support from the universe, from people in my realm. I was doing the psychic work just pretty locally, doing readings and groups, parties in my area. And I had been following Mike Dooley for quite a while, saw that he was holding a Train the Trainer conference, and immediately just knew that I had to do that. It was completely out of character. I got on a plane, went to Orlando around people I didn't know, in a crowd, which was, again, completely out of character, but I knew I had to do it. And then subsequently attending these conferences going forward, I was speaking in front of people. So, it's just kind of evolved, and I was really guided into that, really stepping outside of my comfort zone. And, I actually found that I love to speak in front of people about this stuff.
Awesome.
It's, I don't have a problem, I get nervous, but speaking about things that I'm passionate about is much easier than socializing for me,
Okay.
So I'm still an introvert, still very much an introvert, still need to really regulate my energy. If I have a lot of output, I have to make sure I pull back and recover from that. So, I've gotten better at that, but it's still terrifying. It's still, it's still challenging, but I have such a passion for it that, I could speak in front of hundreds of people with passion for this work.
Well, thank you for saying that. I can certainly attest to the difference that having a passion for something makes in giving you that extra boost or nudge to get over what might be or seem like a hurdle.
Mhm.
In addition to passion, do you have any tips or any things that you do to really support you in continuing to move forward and try that next new thing? I know we've I'm connected to a lot of empaths and
Mhm.
heart-centered people who are in the same space and on that same journey. And just curious if there's anything you could share with them about what helps you.
Well, I think it's just, again, being very self-aware, really checking in to see where I am energetically. What do I need? Do I need to pull back? Do I have a little bit more to give? Really putting limits on the amount of energy that I put out there. So I won't do more than a few readings a day. I'd be very careful with my scheduling so that I'm not, constantly going, because this is not work that you can do 8 hours a day. It's, really high energy work. And so doing 3 readings in a day is, to me, like working time and a half,
Wow.
So it's just being aware of that, I think, and really practicing self-care. And all along this journey, my intention has always been to keep learning and growing and expanding what I do. That's been my main intention. And so what I found was that things would show up that I was not expecting. And every time something would show up, I would immediately say, no, I don't do that. Absolutely not. Yes, I want to grow and learn and expand, but not that way.
Okay.
um, and then I would stop and say, wait a minute, this is showing up in response to my intention. It has to be. So I have to check into it. I don't want to miss an opportunity. And every single time I would open up to something that was a little uncomfortable, it opened another door for me.
Nice.
So for instance, in the beginning, I would only do face-to-face readings with people. That was just what I did. And, people were saying, why don't you do phone readings? I said, how's that work? How do I connect with somebody that's not sitting in front of me? That doesn't work. I can't do that. And then I started going to these conferences and meeting people all over the world who wanted readings. And I thought, okay, I have to do this. And immediately found out it's exactly the same. So now almost all of the readings that I do are by phone or online. And there's no difference than having somebody sitting in front of me. But if I had just resisted that and closed the door, I would have, never expanded. I do readings for people all over the world now. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's like, be open to what shows up. That doesn't mean you have to accept it. But if you're putting an intention out there and something shows up, you've got to look into it at least,
Why do you think you're so passionate about this work?
Well, it changed my life, and again, I spent a lifetime feeling like there was something wrong with me, that, they sent me to a school psychologist in 6th grade because I was so quiet and shy and, only had 1 or 2 friends. And so realizing that it was actually a gift, that was the first thing that really changed my sense of self. And then recognizing that I could use that gift to help other people, but also for my own benefit to increase my confidence in myself and my decision making. I don't second guess myself as much. I know how to tap into that higher power. Yes, I do still second guess myself once in a while. Yes, I do still have struggles. It's not like life is now, a piece of cake, but the challenges that come up are things that help me grow. And I recognize that better. I just recognize that everything that shows up is offering me something. It is offering me an opportunity to grow and get to know myself. And also just recognizing what we really are, which
Yes.
is, unlimited beings of light, and it sounds very cliche, but just really knowing that. There is no doubt in my mind if somebody says to me, "Do you believe in the afterlife?" I'm like, "No, I don't believe in it. I know, I know it. I've experienced communicating with these beings. I know that, there's no doubt. It's
That
just
one day you will be one of those beings and have been.
and we'll go back to that, and we'll keep going on, and we never cease to exist. And it just changes it'll change my whole outlook on life and what's important and what to let go of and what really isn't worth my time and attention, and how to let things go a little bit more easily. I don't attach to things so tightly. It changed everything. And I think that knowledge, that wisdom that we can get through this work, just it changes our outlook, but it also changes what we emit.
Ooh.
So how we're participating in this grand show, the energy that we're putting out there. We also have a higher understanding of how important that is, and so wanting to be in a little bit of a higher vibrational space isn't just for us, it's for everybody there,
Right.
everybody.
Right. Okay. So a little bit ago, I was going to have you expand on, what is the gift of all this, but you've already done that naturally. So thank you. So I just want to point that out, though, that if you're wondering, what is the gift of this? It's everything Tracy literally just said. And at the heart of what I hear you saying is ultimately, it helps you know yourself better. It's stronger connection to yourself, and helps you release those areas within yourself where you may be resisting fully accepting and living into who you fully are. And that resonate what you're saying?
Absolutely. And it's also understanding that we came here to have an experience. We came here to have an adventure, and we chose to do that. We chose to come here and see what we could make of this experience. We didn't come here to be tested. We didn't come here to pass or fail. Came here to have an adventure. And so, even the big challenges can be seen as opportunities to grow and see what you can do. It doesn't make them, easy,
Right.
but it makes them more meaningful.
We're not here to necessarily transcend the human experience, but to know who we are within the human experience.
Exactly. To see it all as a sacred experience. It's not transcending it into this, trying to get up into this spiritual realm. We're already there. It's just bringing awareness to that, and living your life with that awareness, changes the way you view everything. It changes your perspective. You look at things from a different perch, Um, I like to call it the observer's perch.
Oh,
You're or it's a little easier to kind of pull back and observe rather than get sucked into the drama, you know.
yeah.
Mhm.
Without necessarily getting into any drama with this next question, I just want to briefly touch on it. Would you say that some sort of a healing took place within you as you decided to move forward on this journey of tapping into your intuitive abilities?
I think I became aware of myself as healing. I
Okay.
think that we're always healing, but I think the awareness of how miraculous that healing really is, both mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, um, just I think what heals us is awareness
Mm,
of our own divinity, our own sacredness, our the essence of who we are as spiritual beings. That expands what we believe that we can do and experience, and we tend to keep ourselves very small and limited because that's how we're taught. We tend to respond to everything from an intellectual, logical, brain-centered response. And, this is a miraculous organ in here. We need it. It's an amazing piece of flesh, but it's limited. It
right.
is flesh and it's limited, and it's a processor. It's not your best guiding force. It's not your GPS. It's not meant
Mm,
to be that. When we tap into the heart-centered realms of, higher awareness, emotional awareness, feeling, intuition, that's energetic and that's limitless. And that's where we receive the guidance. So your intuitive voice can also be the voice of your higher self, your guides, your angels, source itself. So tapping into your own intuition isn't just your own intuition. It's also where we receive that kind of guidance.
ooh. Uh, what I heard you saying a moment ago is about this can do so much, but we're limited, and it requires us to have that conscious, intentional decision to go beyond just what this can do,
Mhm.
which comes from the heart.
Right.
Uh, or our guides and other supporters on the other
Mhm.
side and things like that.
Mhm.
We very briefly, for anybody who was picking up what was being thrown out earlier, you very briefly touched on, I picked it up. You very briefly touched on um, someone who does what you do with positive intention.
Mhm.
And would you just speak to the importance of that?
Mhm. Well, to me, the intention is a driving force of experience. Okay. It's another way of saying thoughts become things, right?
Mhm.
Quoting Mike Dooley. So, intention is what really sets us up and centers us in a certain direction. So, there can be a lot of, like I said, everyone has the ability to tune into energy. Some people are more sensitive than others. There are a lot of very talented people who can use that in a way to connect with other people's energy. But if their intention is simply to convince them that there's something wrong with them, or that they have a curse on them, or that they, you know, using that as a means to extort people, unfortunately, there's a lot of readers out there who do that. And it's what causes a lot of the negativity around the idea of psychics and mediums.
Right.
Um, you know, we're already frowned upon in the mainstream social realm. There, our culture does not support this at all. Although it is shifting. There is a shift happening in that area. Unfortunately, there are always going to be people who are scamming other people and don't have the best intentions, and that kind of casts a shadow on everyone that does this work. It's unfortunate, but it's not really just confined to this business.
It's not.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's, just about every business has those people who, use their talents in a way that, makes them want to scam people. So to me, it's just, again, using your own discernment. If you go to a psychic and they start to tell you that you have a curse on you, or that somebody's put the evil eye on you, or that you have, somebody once told me, a reader told her she had a broken chakra. It's not possible to have a broken chakra. Or that, again, this sense that there's something bad going on, you have an evil entity or something like that. Get up and run out the door, because the next sentence is going to be, well, for another $500, $600, $1,200, I can give you a candle, I can remove the curse, I can, so it's a means of extorting you through fear. And it's not legitimate in any way. Psychic reading to me should feel good. It should feel uplifting. It should feel inspirational and motivational. To me, I don't predict the future. And a lot of people equate psychics with fortune tellers. To me, the future is always changing depending on our choices. So to predict something for someone as though it were something that's carved in stone has to happen. We're then disempowered. We don't feel like we're participating in creating our lives. But I can see possibilities. And so that's the way I'll present it. I'm seeing this as a possibility, which can now be inspirational, motivational. Like, oh, well, there's a possibility there. I'm going to point in that direction now.
I want to touch on something really quick for anybody who's thinking that, and please clarify. So what I think you were saying a moment ago about, if anybody's going to tell you that you have a dark entity around you, run the other way, because the next sentence is, now pay me $500 and I can get rid of them for you. Please clarify. So you're not necessarily saying that, no, there can't be other dark energies or things like that around you. You're saying be aware of the person who's trying to extort you, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I have my own ideas about dark entities, and that I don't really believe in them so much. But I think that, if I were to, it doesn't mean that I only talk about rainbows and unicorns with people. I will acknowledge their challenges. We'll talk about their challenges, but again, with an intention to help them through those challenges, help them see their way through, help them to acknowledge their own power and to see the possibilities ahead of them. It's not glossing over them, pretending they don't exist. It's not telling them what they necessarily want to hear, but it's also not instilling fear. And so I think it's just being aware when somebody's trying to instill fear in you, because that is the number one way that people manipulate you. So again, if I sense challenges, I'll talk about it and say, well, how can we look at this differently? Let me see if I can give you a different perspective on this so that you can see how you can work with it and work through it, instead of saying, oh, you have this terrible thing happening and, I can help you for more money,
Right.
If somebody says you have a curse on you, you're going to feel completely powerless to that.
Right.
That's the whole point.
Is to help you know your power and connect with your options, right?
That's my intention. Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you for touching on that. So let's get into talking about channeling and Frank. And at what point in your journey did you start to realize you had the ability to do that, or have you always known?
Oh gosh, no. That was one of those things where it showed up and I went, what? Not that. No, I don't channel. That's not something I do. But it showed up. This story is outlined in the preface of the first book, Frank Talk. But briefly, my sister was visiting, who's also psychic. We had a sense that something was trying to get through to us. We had a series of strange events, which, as both of us practicing in this stuff, it made us realize, there's something more going on here. My sister used to use a Ouija board when I was growing up, and sounds kind of corny, but she had a notebook this thick of messages from this Ouija board over several years. It was really fascinating. So the first thought was, oh, well, let's get a Ouija board to see who's trying to contact us. Well, we didn't have one, so we made one.
Oh my goodness.
That cardboard Ouija board. And after a few minutes on it, it spelled out Frank. And I didn't know anybody by that name. She didn't know anybody by that name. We didn't know who this was. But it was clear it was, some kind of entity that was friendly and, wanted to chat. And they very soon asked if I would try automatic writing because it would be easier than this board. And again, I was like, I don't do that. I don't know what that is. But they explained what to do. Sit with a pen and paper, nice relaxed state of mind, nice candle, and so I tried it. Didn't know if my hand was going to start writing on its own, but what I found was I got a word, just kind of came into my consciousness. So I wrote it down, and then another word, wrote it down. So it was like taking dictation. I had been a secretary most of my working life, and so I know how to do this. But it was much different from, having a thought and then putting it into a sentence. It was just word by word by word. And I wasn't even sure it was making sense until I looked at it later. So I did that for a while. I got some really beautiful messages from them. They felt very uplifting and universal. I asked them if they wanted to start writing a book at that time, and they said no. So I kind of put it aside for a few years, probably 2 or 3 years. I didn't.
Why was Frank there? Why was Frank showing up?
I didn't know at that time. I had no idea. When I picked it up again, they started. For something had shifted, and the communication was clearer. I was now typing on a laptop instead of writing with handwriting, and they wanted to write a book at that time. So
Wow.
That's how the first book started to come about. I would sit up in bed at night when my brain was kind of sleepy and out of the way, and just take dictation on the laptop, and that's how the entire Frank Talk book came about, with a lot of hiccups in between, because I had moments of thinking, oh my gosh, people already think I'm weird. They're going to really think I'm crazy now. Am I really ready for this? Do I really want to put this out there? And there would be times where I would just say, I can't do this. And then I would start reading it again. Like, okay, yeah, I have to do this. So yeah, it was a challenging thing because I knew I was going to get backlash, and I did. But I also knew that, it was important that there was some important stuff in there that could be really inspirational to people. And, they went to all this trouble to communicate with me. I'm not going to turn it down.
Does Frank have a core message that they're ultimately here to convey to people through you?
Yeah, I think it's really just that we need to be aware, again, of our own power to create change. That we need to really own our divinity, and be willing to see beyond what we see. Be willing to just kind of experience things beyond just the five senses, beyond this kind of limiting view that most of us have.
Yeah.
To see the potential in everything, to see that, again, that what we're thinking and what we're believing has huge effect on what we think of ourselves as limited beings, and that we can change that, and we can participate in the shift of the whole world just by working on our own little sphere.
Absolutely. Yes.
Again, it's, as we shift in here, we're shifting what we're putting out, and that has a ripple effect out into, the universe itself. So their journey, because Frank is a collective of 8 beings.
Okay.
They're not human. They're from another planet, which again, this is why I was a little frightened to put this out there, as people are going to.
I want to acknowledge you have my full total support. And we also have Joel Salomon in the comments saying, thanks so much for sharing the amazing material, Tracy. You definitely inspired me.
Oh, thank you, Joel. Well, yeah, it's a stretch. And I think actually that's one of their intentions as well. I think that just the mere fact that they're coming through as these alien beings from another planet, from 8 billion light years away, is going to stretch most people's thinking, and I think that's one of the whole points. We need to be able to stretch beyond what we think is possible. And when they said they were from 8 billion light years away, I had to look that up and see, is the universe really that big? I have no idea, and it is. So, I think it's all about really expanding beyond our limited thinking and the blinders that we go around with in our everyday life, and seeing the world as a miraculous, awe-inspiring experience, and the universe itself. Again, it's just like very much in line with how I've experienced my journey. It's every step of the way expanded my view, and every time we do that, we're participating in the expansion of what's possible here on Earth. So where they're from, they went through something very, very similar to what we're going through with, a lot of environmental challenges, but
Wow.
they were brought to the brink of destruction. So their story went beyond ours, but because they worked on expanding consciousness and brought that into the scientific realm, they brought the realm of spirituality and consciousness into the scientific realm. They were able to save the planet. They were able to, expand what they believed was possible, to the degree that they learned how to project their consciousness and communicate with other worlds, like the way they're communicating with me.
So it takes, in my book, it takes a lot of courage to be able to not only do the work that you're doing, but also put yourself out there. And so I want to say thank you, because you are obviously, helping to expand everyone. And I just want to add, I mean, for all these things that hear about, connecting with people from other planets or wherever, things like that stretch our minds. If you encounter something like that challenges you, you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to necessarily make any judgment about it, but even just say, oh, isn't that interesting? And leave space open, because I find that when we completely close off to a certain idea, then we start to close doors to other things in our life as well. And so it doesn't mean you have to agree with it and claim it as your truth or whatever. But what if you just were to go, isn't that interesting? That's another possibility. That's another person's actual lived experience. Wow.
Yeah. I love that. And that's pretty much how I live my life.
Okay.
In this kind of wow, the state of awe. And what I find is, that when I teach these classes now in psychic development, a lot of people are so fixated on wanting to understand everything. What does this mean? And how does that work? And I'll say, I don't know. But isn't that cool that I don't know? I mean, I just think the whole thing is cool. I mean, I have this, somebody was just saying in my class, I have this experience of flying in my dreams, and it's told me this whole dream, and what do you think that means? And I said, what does it mean to you? How do you feel about that? And maybe it's just, maybe you're exploring other worlds, maybe you're astral traveling, maybe you're entering other dimensions, maybe. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. I'm Tracy, I love that you said all that, because it makes me laugh. I don't lose my train of thought now. I just, because you can have that experience. Okay, here's where it's coming from. 10 years ago, when I first started meditating and opening myself up more and more, I remember I had someone who would constantly say to me, Kim, get out of your right brain, or maybe I switched them up, but Kim, like, stop. You keep going that direction, because I kept trying to make sense of everything. And the more I just started to be open, things actually did end up finding a way of making sense. And yet I totally know what you're saying about how you can't always logically explain everything, and yet viscerally on an internal energetic experience, you're just like, but it's true, and it's happening, it's happened, it's going to happen again. And I know that can be so confusing for some people. So
we're just intrinsically curious, and I think curiosity is a great term and intention. Be curious, but don't be so fixated on having to have something proven to you before you'll accept it. Again, it doesn't mean you need to go with every wild theory, like you said. You want to use your discernment. Again, check in with yourself. And how does that feel? Does that feel like it resonates with my truth? And if it doesn't, leave it behind. That's okay. But not out of a sense of judgment, like you said, just out of a sense of, yeah, that's not for me. But just being open to the fact that there was a whole lot more going on out there than we could ever understand in our logical brain. And again, this is a pretty miraculous instrument, but there are things that we're just not going to be able to understand. And if you get to the point where that's okay, then you're opening, again, you're stretching yourself into a whole different realm that not only lets you see the universe differently, it lets you see yourself differently.
Yes, right.
And so that means that I'm also infinite. I'm also more than what I can see, the whole experience is more than what I can see. So it makes the issues, the problems, the challenges a lot less heavy.
Right. Absolutely. So, Tracy, I love hearing you talk, and we're not done, but I want to just be mindful of time now. And would you be open to pulling some cards for everybody who views today's video? And maybe one or two people, if they're with us live and say they would like a card, would you be open to that as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
So while Tracy's getting her cards, for those who are with us live, if you would like Tracy to pull a card for you, I'm going to go ahead and just based on time, say the first two people who type in the comments that you would like a card pulled, then Tracy will pull for you as well. But go ahead and type it in the comments so we can see you. And you'll have to click on the video and type in the comments that way. So it's not in the post, it's in the actual video. Hopefully that makes sense.
Okay. So I use tarot cards. This is another one of those things that came up in my path that I said no to right away because I didn't want to have to learn them. And then I learned that I could read them intuitively, that, I didn't have to study the tarot for years and years. And now I use them all the time. They're an amazing tool. And so, I teach that as well, the tarot, but I read them intuitively. I don't read them by anybody else's idea of what they're supposed to mean, although I do have a, basic understanding of the symbolism and, but they never cease to amaze me, the cards, So,
I love that.
So, would you like to pull one, just a universal card for everybody first?
Yes. Yeah? Yes, please. Okay. Yes.
So the intention here is just to get some general guidance for whomever might be listening. If this feels resonant to you, then go with it. Okay. So the card that I pulled is the Nine of Pentacles. I can show that to you. This is my deck is the Barbara Walker deck. And the Nine of Pentacles is represented by a very heavily pregnant woman there, looking like she's in her 9th month of pregnancy, right? So Pentacles often represents money. It can also just represent our material lives. The word on the card is accomplishment. So there's a sense, the numbers in the cards go from ace to 10. You can see that as a journey, ace being the beginning, number 1, 10 being the end and a beginning. So the 9 is that sense of just about to give birth to something here. That 9th month of pregnancy. You're just about to see the results of all the work that you've been doing. And that's usually the most uncomfortable place for us. Just like if you've had a child, that 9th month of pregnancy is usually the most uncomfortable. You can't wait for it to be over. You feel like it's never going to be over. When is this ever going to end? So you may be feeling that in your life right now. Like, when am I going to see the results? When am I going to accomplish what I set out to accomplish? And this card is assuring you that it's coming, and it has to come in its own time, in its own volition. But just like having a baby, the results are going to far outweigh the discomfort that you're experiencing now with this waiting. Okay. So to me, it's asking you to, keep going, keep very clear about your intentions, and don't give up. Don't throw in the towel just because you think it's taking too long or you're not where you're supposed to be. So it's a very encouraging card that things are about to really shift and change in your favor. Okay, so if that resonates with you, then
I love it.
okay.
I love it. Yeah, for those who are with us, let us know if that resonates with you. I definitely have resonance with it, and
okay, awesome.
Love it. Okay, so let's see. We've got a couple of people here with us. Lori Cook is saying, I would like a card.
Okay, Lori. All right. So the card that I pulled for you, Lori, is the World card. So there it is. um, so this is a very positive card. The World card pretty much is saying you've got the world at your feet. And whenever there's a card with a naked person, so there she is, there's a sense of really coming into your true authentic self. And it's especially this card, it's like really encouraging you to put that true authentic self out there and pretty much saying, this is me, here I am, world, take me or leave me, kind of thing. So it's really encouraging you to connect with your own self-confidence, your self-awareness, and be willing to step outside your comfort zone and really let the world see who you really are. You don't have to dance naked, but there is this sense of, being true to yourself, because that's where you really do experience the sense of having the world at your feet. If you're trying to fit someone else's expectations or even your own ego's expectations, you're not really being your true authentic self. There's also a sense in this card of guidance. These little beings often feel like guides, those little beings around there's animals there, little fairy, there's a hawk, and so forth. To me, they feel like guides in the sense of reminding you that you're being guided. And the more authentic and tuned in you are to yourself, the more you're going to be aware of that guidance coming in. You're going to be aware of your strengths, and the more you kind of push yourself a little bit outside of that comfort zone, the more you'll be able to see what you can really do. So, this is not a time to shrink back. Okay. It's not a time to limit yourself. It's time to really be willing to be vulnerable and open. Okay.
Wonderful. Lori, let us know how that resonates with you. Joel is our next card person. Pull a card for me, please.
Okay. Okay. So Joel, your card is the Six of Cups, which looks like this. So the Suit of Cups is a heart-centered awareness. It is about your feelings, your emotions, your intuition, all of that heart-centered energy that we were talking about before. And this particular card, you can see that the word on the card is childhood. And there's this picture of this very big looming parental figure and the little child in front of it. So this card is often about reconciling yourself to your past and recognizing that a lot of the beliefs that we carry through our lives were kind of installed in us in those younger days when we're forming our identity, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it was done in a bad way or a traumatic way, although that could be the case. But for you, Joel, I'm feeling like you may be experiencing some blast from the past right now. You may be feeling a little nostalgic. You may have some things coming up right now that are bringing up the past, especially around family, and so that's actually a means for us to reconcile some of these things and again bring some awareness to it. Not that we have to dig out all of this stuff and analyze it to death. It just means, I can see how my parents influenced me in a certain way. And I can also see that I'm an adult now and I can make some different choices around that. I can shift some of these beliefs that might be holding me back. I don't have to keep going along with that just because that's what I was taught as a kid. Okay. So the idea of childhood in the past, just saying there may be the universe is kind of nudging you right now to really make peace with some of these things so you can expand beyond some of the limitations that you may be dragging with you from childhood. Okay.
So many of us can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We did have one more person. I know I said we were only going to do two, but we have a little more time. We've got one more person. Would you be able to do more? Okay.
I'm happy to do that. Yes.
We've got Jean Donnelly.
Hi, Jean. All right. So this happens a lot because I do these sometimes once in a while on Facebook. I'll have people ask for cards, and this happens so often that it's really kind of funny. So there are 78 cards in this deck, and I just pulled the same card as the first card. Okay. So, this wasn't just laying out on the desk here. This was, random drawing of the same card as the first card that I pulled, which was the universal card of the Nine of Pentacles. So again, this is the card of just about to birth something into your world. So the sense of patience that's being encouraged for you here, the sense of, just understanding and really knowing that the timing of everything, the way that it's working out, is going to be just the way it needs to be, even though you might be feeling a little restless, a little antsy, a little impatient. When is this ever going to happen? Should I just give it up? Should I just go on to something else? This is saying, hang in there, but you don't have to be so intensely focused on it anymore. Just trust that things are going to unfold in exactly the way they're going to. And again, put the intentions out there to the universe, how you would like this to all go, and then release it. You don't have to say, when's it coming? When's it coming? When's it coming? Because every time you say, when's it coming, you're focused on it not being here. It's the same with a baby, right? When's it coming? Well, it's going to come when it's ready, or like forcing a flower to bloom. It's going to bloom when it's ready. So the Nine of Pentacles is just asking you to, be still in this space of not just waiting, you're participating with your energy. Get excited, build up a little anticipation. Know that things are going to turn out, maybe not exactly in the way that you're expecting, but maybe even better. Okay. Get excited about the possibilities and keep aiming for them, because clearly something's about to shift. Okay.
I love that. Jean, let us know in the comments how that resonates with you. And Tracy, something we didn't acknowledge, but I've always heard many times, and I personally believe, is that even if we didn't pull a card for, Tom or Susie or whoever else might be with us today on live or on the replay, that the messages may still be connecting in with something that would be beneficial for them as well, correct?
Absolutely. All the time. Now, even when I do the spirit message galleries, that happens, when someone's grandfather might come through with a message that really applies to other people in the audience, and again, we're all here for a reason. We didn't just come here randomly. I don't believe anything's random, and so maybe somebody there needed to hear one of those messages that was for somebody else. And by the way, people ask if I do readings for myself. I don't need to, because I get something out of everyone too.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Yeah. We are nearing the end of today's show. Thank you so much for being here today, Tracy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just, this is so fun. So I would like to first just ask you, do you have any parting words for someone who's, currently going through what your journey has been about this unfolding of, oh no, okay, I guess I'm going to try this, and moving forward and being open to those possibilities. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to share to be in support of those people?
Well, if you think of yourself as a highly sensitive person, as somebody who picks up on energy, just know that there are ways that you can control that. It doesn't have to control you. And if you're an empath and you pick up an emotional energy and you find that it weighs you down sometimes, there are ways that you can work with it. There are ways that you can regulate it. You can, you don't have to walk around with that antenna all up all the time. You can find ways to pull that down a little bit, find ways to protect your energy, really take really good care of yourself. And you're under no obligation to use those sensitivities in any particular way. You're not obligated to now become a psychic medium who does readings for people just because you can. Okay. But in the long run, the most important thing that you can do with those sensitivities is use them to your own advantage. Use them as a means to really learn to trust yourself. Really listen to that intuitive voice. Take it seriously. Again, that's part of your intrinsic birthright, to receive information and guidance through your intuition. And it's not wrong very often, So when you really think about the times where you listen to that intuition and what happened when you didn't, let that inspire you to listen to it more often. It really is life-changing. And again, it's part of your birthright. there are lots of ways that you can connect with other people, support groups, workshops, classes that can help you feel more confident in those abilities. And also, I think the most important thing of all is have fun with it. It's not supposed to be a big, heavy journey. Let it lift you up,
Right. Yeah. I think for a lot of us, as we find that the first half of our life is pretty heavy, and then as something shakes up our world, and that happens more than once in life, we learn to become easier and easier with it all.
Yeah, hopefully, yes.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
so we've got Lori, Joel, and Jean all saying that thank you, and that resonated with them.
Awesome.
And thank you to Susan, who's also here with us. So Tracy, where can people connect with you after today's show?
Well, just tracyfarquhar.com is my website, and that describes everything that I offer, all the different kinds of readings, workshops, classes, all on there. And you can even book an appointment right on that website. So that's the best place to find out what I can offer you and connect with me through there.
Okay. You're in the New Jersey area, correct?
I am, yes.
Okay, wonderful. So I just absolutely love today's guest, Tracy Farquhar, and thank you so much for everything you shared with us today. This was just really so supportive and insightful for people who are on that journey that's continually unfolding, which really that's all of us. But those who have said yes to allowing themselves to be open to that unfolding, just beautiful inspirational messages today from Tracy. So thank you so much, Tracy. And thank you. Absolutely. And thank you for everybody who is with us live. Remember, every day is always a new day. That is literally, that is metaphorically. And so wherever you are in your life, things can still change. Hope always exists. And I just hope you take that with you today. So have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again very soon with another episode of the Every Day is a New Day show. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
And that's today's show. So, what are you taking away? Let me know down in the comments wherever you listened or watched today's episode, and connect with me on Facebook on the Every Day is a New Day show and coaching page, or visit KimO'NeillCoaching.com for more info. Remember, every day is always a new day. Wherever you are today does not have to be where you are tomorrow. There is always hope, and you will always be amazing. I'll see you next time.